Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last of this week's reflections in our 10-week series named Loving, Living, Giving. For any of you who don't know me, my name is Lee, and I'm the ordinand in the parish whilst I'm training for priesthood. I'll be around for the next 9 or so months before I'm ordained at Manchester Cathedral. Over the past few weeks, we've been looking at the word living and what that means in various contexts. This week specifically, we've been looking at what it's like living with our everyday faith. Carol mentioned in her reflection earlier this week that perhaps there are things from our everyday life that can get in the way of our everyday faith. Jim also mentioned feeling this when it comes to his beloved football team, and he asked us if there are perhaps things we could let go from one life in order to make the other that bit more healthy. Now, whilst I don't doubt that things from everyday life can and do get in the way of our faith, I quite often wonder if they are meant to be one in the same. Whatever is happening in our lives, you can be sure that God certainly has a hand in it. So could our everyday faith be part of God's plan for our everyday lives? In a way, in modern times, we have a good mix. We don't live as, say, medieval monks where we have to give all of our time to our faith. Yet we don't need to feel disheartened because God knows that in our lives there are things like family, children, grandchildren, work, and even our hobbies. As long as those hobbies are not an unhealthy addiction to your favourite football team. Particularly during lockdown and since the closure of churches, the Sunday worship we would have usually experienced together has obviously ceased. And we now practice it away from each other. And this is a great example of life and faith mixing together as one. At worst, it's certainly a start for us. And if other elements of what God calls us to do, the loving others and charitable giving and building the kingdom, well, these can become part of life too. And then we truly have a good mix of life and faith. I know it's not always clear what God wants or what he has planned for us, but just as Linda gave us the definition for faith on Tuesday, if we are going to look at everyday faith, then it needs to be just that, faith. Faith that Jesus loves us, certainly has plans for us, and good plans they are too, if we remember that the mix of life and faith needs to be a healthy one. Quite literally a mix so that they are one together. And I think that's important rather than having them as competing elements fighting for our time and attention. So as we end this week's series of reflections and look towards starting another, perhaps we can remember that our lives and our faith were always meant to gel together nicely. If we can remember this, we can keep that balance in place, and we can do so in a healthy and loving way. Amen.